Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency. Welcome to the event, Care Work and Caregivers, Global Challenges and Regional Perspectives for Inclusive Social Development. I'm your moderator for this afternoon. I am Dr. Ugoji Adamaize, Chairman of the Human Rights Committee of the African Bar Association, and member of the City Bar Association United Nations Committee. I'd like to first and foremost say a huge thank you to His Excellency, the permanent representative of Haiti to the United Nations, for gracing us with his presence. Also for the permanent mission of Nigeria to the United Nations for being the main sponsor of this event. A special shout out to Mr. David and also to the head of Chancery for their tireless work in seeing the realization of this event. Standing on all existing protocols, Your Excellency, distinguished guests, care work, both paid and unpaid, sustains life, well-being, and the social and economic functioning of all societies. Yet across regions, it remains largely invisible, feminized, and undervalued. Let us take, for example, Chile, where unpaid care work represents a significant share of the extended gross domestic product, reflecting broader structural patterns observed in Latin America, Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean. The responsibility for caring for dependent persons, including children, older persons, persons with disabilities, autistic persons, and persons living with chronic illnesses, continues to fall predominantly on women, often without adequate legal recognition, social protection, or coordinated public support systems. This structural inequality contributes to persistent poverty, social exclusion, and heightened human rights vulnerabilities, while simultaneously sustaining economic and social cohesion. The purpose of this forum, then, is to advance global dialogue on care work and caregiving as a human rights issue and a cornerstone of social development and social justice, while also recognizing the role of culture, arts, and inclusive forms of expression as complementary tools for dignity, participation, and above all, social inclusion. By integrating policy dialogue, legal perspectives, and cultural expressions, the Forum seeks to promote resilient care and support systems that contribute to poverty eradication, uphold human dignity, and strengthen social cohesion, particularly for caregivers, persons with disabilities, autistic persons, and older persons. It now gives me great pleasure to hand across to our keynote speaker, His Excellency Monsieur Pierre-Éric Pierre, Ambassador Extraordinaire and Plenipotentiary from the Permanent Mission of Haiti to the United Nations. Your Excellency, bienvenue, and merci beaucoup.
Merci. Merci, Dr. Ugoji. I'm very happy to be here. And my top diplomat insisted for me to be here. And because of you also, I'm happy to be here. Excellencies, distinguished panelists and delegates, it's an honor to join you as the permanent representative of Haiti for this important side event on care work and caregivers. I thank Dr. Ugoji and her team for convening this meeting and for the opportunity given to my country to be one of the co-sponsors. The theme of today touches the very core of inclusive social development, the recognition that care work, both paid and unpaid, is the foundation upon which our societies function. This conversation could not be more timely. I welcome all of you, panelists, all the guests, which effort is vital to keep this dialogue fruitful. We gather here to shed light on an issue that is both universal and deeply personal. Around the world, care work, whether provided by families, communities, or professionals, form the invisible backbone of our societies. Yet it remains undervalued, under-recognized, and insufficiently supported in policy and practice, particularly in most of the countries of our region. This gap has consequences not only for gender equality, but also for social protection, economic participation, and long-term resilience. Today, as we reflect on global and regional perspectives, allow me to highlight three priorities that are essential for transforming the care economy into a pillar of inclusive social development and which resonates with the broader operations of the 2030 agenda. First, we must recognize care as a public good. Second, we must invest in the care workforce. Third, we must adopt the life course of community-centered approach. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the challenge before us are immense, but they are not insurmountable. Investing in care is not only a moral imperative, it is a strategic choice that drives social cohesion, economic growth, and resilience. But we cannot do it in isolation. We need to do it together. We need cooperation that is not transactional but transformational. Haiti remains committed to doing its part. The connection between the SDGs reminds us that development is a shared responsibility. The three pillars of the Doha Political Declaration give us the responsibility to work simultaneously at several levels to deliver, to make our commitments on paper, our resolution at the UN take life on the ground at our national level, to ensure better conditions of life for our population. Our progress in the region depends on the strength of our partnerships, the coherence of our actions, the learning and sharing experience from the diverse regional perspective represented here, and the courage of our collective choices. As we look forward toward the future, let us reaffirm our commitment to placing care at the center of social development. Let us work together, government, civil society, international organizations, the private sector and communities to build care systems that uphold dignity, promote equality, and leave no one behind. Thank you again for your presence. Thank you, Dr. Gucci.
Thank you, Excellency, and I'd like to pick up one of on 2 points of what you said. Care work is very important, and it's also part of the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, 2030, and also a regional dialogue and also regional agenda, more particularly from the Caribbean. Also, we cannot underestimate that, and also Africa Agenda 2063. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. It now gives me great pleasure to hand across to Professor Sophia Lunar, Chair of the United Nations Committee of the New York City Bar Association. My noted colleague, I hand across to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for attending. So on behalf of the United Nations Committee of the New York City Bar Association, it is my great honor to be a participant during this side event of the Commission of Social Development, and I particularly wish to thank my esteemed colleague, Dr. Ugoji Eze, for this honor and for faith in me, quite frankly. Today we gather to discuss a subject that is at once profoundly intimate and undeniably global: care work. It is a global principle. Care is the quiet infrastructure of civilization. It is the work that allows every other form of work to exist since the inception of humanity. It is the invisible scaffolding beneath our economies, our families, our health systems, and our futures. And yet, despite its indispensability, care work remains chronically undervalued, underpaid, and too often, quite frankly, unseen in the background, as are care workers. Across regions and cultures, caregivers, most of them women and girls, sustain societies throughout labor that is frequently informal, unprotected, and economically precarious. Whether tending to children, elders, persons with disabilities, as my colleagues have mentioned, or communities in crisis, caregivers absorb burdens that institutions too often overlook, and these burdens, needless to say, fall on subtle shoulders. If we are serious about inclusive social development, we must be doubly serious about care, for it is an egregious matter that needs our tending. For when care collapses, make no mistake about it, everything collapses. This is not simply a social issue, my friends, my colleagues. It is not merely a gender issue. It is a matter of human rights, dignity, and economic justice. At the New York City Bar's United Nations Committee, or New York City Bar Association, our work is guided by the belief that international law and local action must inform one another. We convene practitioners, scholars, advocates, and community leaders to examine how global frameworks translate into real protections for real people, such as everyone here. Over the past year, our committee, the United Nations Committee, has hosted dialogues and programs focused on access to justice, protections for displaced families, the rights of women and children affected by conflict, and the structural inequities that disproportionately impact caregivers worldwide. What connects all of these efforts is a simple yet integral premise. Human dignity must be operational and not theoretical. Care work is situated precisely at that intersection, and if dignity means anything to anybody, it must mean that those who sustain life itself are protected, compensated, and respected. It must mean that policies that recognize unpaid labor come to understand that unpaid labor is something that is belongs to the Ice Age. It must signify social protections for domestic workers and inform caregivers, because after all, it must reference international cooperation, which is why we are at the United Nations today, because no nation solves these challenges in solitaire by themselves. On a personal note, this issue is deeply meaningful to me, not solely as an international human rights and racial justice attorney or as an advocate, but as a storyteller. I recently made a documentary film called Soul Arbitration, which centers on women and children displaced by the war in Ukraine, and I've witnessed firsthand what care appears like in its most essential form. I've met mothers carrying entire families across borders, volunteers building safety out of scarcity, and communities practicing care as an act of survival. And I'll repeat that again, care as an act of survival. What struck me most was this: in moments when institutions falter, it is caregivers who hold the world together. Their labor may not appear in budgets or in reports, but without them, recovery is simply impossible. And that experience affirmed for me that care is not peripheral to development, but care is development. Care is development. If we design systems that protect caregivers, we protect families. If we protect families, we safeguard communities. And if we shelter and harbor communities, we strengthen nations. Today's gathering reflects our shared commitment to that vision. We are fortunate to hear voices from multiple regions, sectors, and disciplines, each offering perspectives on how care can be strengthened, valued, and made more equitable. Care at its heart is relational. It reminds us that progress is not derived from isolation, but from responsibility to one another, to each fellow human soul. On behalf of our committee, thank you for the work each of you does and for contributing to this vital conversation. And I look forward to today's dialogue and to the practical solutions that will emerge as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, my learned colleague, and thank you very much for your leadership and for being chair of the hearing committee of the City New York Association. We really appreciate it. Now it gives me great pleasure to turn across to make a few remarks to Dr. Julia Law, co-founder and CEO of Global Therapeutic Institutes of New York. Dr. Julia, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Dear friends, my name is Julia. Today, in this room, I come here many times. Every single time we discuss the politics and a lot of big things, but today I just want to share something about the human personally. 33 years ago, I just finished my postdoctoral training with my supervisor. We went to Capitol Hill. We found that people looks exhausted, tired, stressful. Because I'm an acupuncture doctor, so we offer them acupuncture. Suddenly, people shows the smile on the face. So after then, I still continue to my research in National Cancer Institute, NIH. But I still use my acupuncture help people. I came to America over almost 45 years. Every single day I use my acupuncture and help people and help. I also founded a school called Global Therapeutic Institute. We're training acupuncture doctors and teaching our doctor be acupuncture doctors. And open a school in different countries. So today I came here to invited everybody join us and open the branch in different countries and help more person can use the simple, efficient acupuncture to do the healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Julia. Really thank you for all you do. Your gift to women, especially women with cancer, breast cancer. You've done a lot and we really appreciate it. Professor Tony, is he, has he arrived? Or I should go across the room.
Just step back from...
Okay, so we'll now go across, I hope the technicians are ready. We'll go across to San Diego in Chile for our next speaker, Ms. Carolina Lizana Bujas, President of Mollica Foundation Chile. She'll be doing a virtual presentation. I'd like to first and foremost say a huge thank you to Caroline. She's done a great deal of work and she's contributed a lot to this program. Muchas gracias, madam.
Thank you, Dr. Ugoshi. Distinguished delegates, representative of permanent missions, authority, colleagues, and friends, Mesa Regional de Mujeres Cuidadoras de la Quinta Región. It is an honor to be part of this space and to open this dialogue within the framework of the 64th session of the Commission for Social Development, addressing issues that sustain life and society that has historically remained invisible: care work. Care is not a private matter. It's a pillar of social development, social justice, and human dignity across all parts of the world: Latin America, Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean. Paid and unpaid care work fall disproportionately on women. We are the ones who predominantly sustain the care of children, other person with disability, autistic person, and people living with chronic illnesses, often without legal recognition, without social protection, and without coordinated public system that support us. This reality reproduces a structural inequality, deepens poverty, and limits the social, economic, and political participation of millions of women, even as our work sustains the very functionality of our society. In Chile, thousands of people perform unpaid care work. In recent years, the state has taken an important step by formally recognizing caregivers through the caregiver credential, a mechanism that makes care visible and acknowledge that who provide it, and who this recognition remains insufficient and must be strengthened. At the same time, many women are not recognizing themselves as caregivers. The cultural mandate has been so deeply rooted that care continue to be perceived as a natural obligation of a woman, rather than a socially necessary work that generates rights. When women do not name themselves as caregivers, they are also excluded from recognition, protection, and public policy response. This is closely linked to a deeper individualist logic that has denied our interdependence as a society. We have invisibly intergenerational and intragenerational dependence, forgetting that all people, at different moments of life, need care. Recognizing care means recognizing that we are not isolated individuals, but social beings, connected, vulnerable, and co-responsible. Providing care often means renouncing partly or entirely the possibility of exercising our profession or trades. It means not contributing to social security system, no accumulating sufficient pension saving, and facing old age without economic security. Care work is performed 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, without the right to vacation or guaranteed rest. In response to this reality, caregivers, and especially we, women caregivers, have begun to organize, to advocate, and to raise our voice, not as residents of assistance, but as right holders and political actors. From the experience of Mudebu, we have learned that when caregivers organize, we do not only advance public policy, we transform narrative. We challenge the idea that care is a natural obligation of women, and state position care is a shared social responsibility that must be assumed by a state, community, and social protection system. However, this leadership also faces resistance. In different contexts, Women caregivers who engage in public advocacy are subject to digital violence, harassment, and disinformation. These practices are not accidental. They are political. They seek to silently imitate demands and regain access to social transformation. Speaking about care, therefore, also requires speaking about protection, safe participation, and rights in both physical and digital space. Advancing toward resilient, coordinated, equitable, and inclusive care system is essential to eradicating poverty, strengthening social cohesion, and guaranteeing dignity for those of us who provide care, and that's more important, for those who receive it. Today, from this international platform, we call for strengthening interregional cooperation and the construction of care policy grounded in human rights, policy that not rely on the cybersecurity of women, but on own responsibility and social justice. Because there is no social development without care, there is no dignity without recognition, and there is no inclusive future if that of us who care remain invisible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carolina. Thank you. We'll now go to the second segment of this, which will be a panel discussion on care work and caregiving as a pillar of human rights and social development. The focus area will be on human rights framework, social justice, gender equality, and the recognition of care work in public policy. Our first speaker will be Dr. Emma Osong, Executive Director of Advocacy, Network of Justice and Peace. I welcome you, my learned colleague, and it's good to see you. The last time we were together in Accra, Ghana, for the recently concluded African Bar Association annual meeting. Welcome.
Thank you very much, and it is a pleasure to be here amongst you. Let me take a few seconds of the time that I have to share with you all what I've prepared to just acknowledge the previous speakers and say this subject is so central to our lives. Some of the themes would sound like a broken record. At a time when we are living in an era where communities are living in fear, the concept, Doctor, about creating safe spaces for inclusive dialogue cannot be more timely. So I want to applaud the Planning Committee for bringing this conversation to the fore during the 64th Commission on Social Development. And so with that, let me start my presentation by giving you all an analogy. In parts of the Democratic Republic, billions of dollars worth of minerals is extracted each year. We know that. With simple Google search, you're going to come up with that information. But much of that labor, child labor, revenues from unregulated miners, unprotected and informal workers largely go unreported. But we know that their work is central to that particular industry, correct? And much like care work and care workers, we see similar parallels. The economies, their contribution, the people who perform this work, largely, as you have heard, which are people like us, women, go largely unpaid, unrecognized, and this sector, much like the analogy I just shared, miners live on the fringes. They are not part of the equation, the data that goes into policy for the most part. So I share this analogy for us to see the degree of how this concept of human rights as it concerns care work and care worker communities is very important. So the rights and dignity of people who largely exist in this sector is often overlooked. We've heard some of the previous speakers talk about rights to dignity, rights to equality. These are all concepts enshrined in the convention, in the Human Rights Convention. So it's no surprise that we're here pushing the agenda that this segment, much like in the mining industry and some other areas, must come out of the shadow, be part of that data, be part of that communication that we're having today. So recognizing care work is an essential part of our social infrastructure. The ambassador just mentioned it being part of social development, and that is in fact the case. As long as we are not strengthening that part of our communities, we're essentially weaker for it, no matter how advanced we are. And there's this myth that if you can't measure, more likely, if you cannot measure, more than likely, you cannot manage. For some people, that's a myth. I say that's the starting point when we speak of the issue of care work as human rights, care work as part of social development. So let me stop there and share a personal reflection. I think part of the reason, I'm not sure if Dr. Eze read the book I wrote, which in part of it, I share my personal journey, how I became a care worker, which is not my profession. And part of that is because there are systems that feed the prominence and dominance of care work operating mainly out of the formal economy. What do I mean by that? Without naming and labeling, there are certain sectors that singularly or in combination creates actions that prioritizes interest over humanity, interest over human lives. So as a personal story, when I was tired of seeing my daughter, who at the prime age of 22 was paralyzed from the neck down, being told by the insurance companies, we have stopped your medication, we are not paying for it. When she was tired, being discharged summarily from care, she ended up being sent to what I call the home for people with broken bones. I want to use the word nursing home, but I think that's more appropriate. We as a family, and many families around the world, end up making the choice to care for their family at home, where they can have, one, the dignity that they require in the care that they need. And so I say there is a feeder system that creates this, and this also feeds into the types of proposals and recommendations that we have to make here. So caregivers and care work and care workers are mostly hyper-focused on keeping loved ones safe, providing the care, trying to manage multiple activities from doctor's appointment, etc. If you've done this, you understand it. And they are more than likely not able to adequately advocate for themselves. And so platforms such as this creates that safe space for us to discuss this and advance hopefully solutions that policymakers, nation states, and multilateral bodies can take up. So the reason I say this is, I am not an expert in policy, but my lived experiences informs what I'm sharing here today. And it is the story of millions of people, and I bet you some of you in the audience. So when we talk of care work, most people would see them as individuals who are resilient, they can do this, they are champions for their family, they will throw themselves in front of a moving train to care for loved ones. But here's where it becomes a problem. Resilience should never take the place of sound policies and effective systems. Where you find communities that are resilient, more than likely, you will find systems that are not adequately meeting people's needs in the care worker and care work arenas. So families are forced to absorb and do all the work. So, of course, there are the issues of gender equality. As we said, these are the types of work that mothers will give up their lives, give up their jobs in order to do. So we need to also start thinking about how to create policies that take into account those intersectionalities that come into this environment. Because I want to leave more time for us to have more discussion, let me look at very quickly the formal sector of care work as it pertains to also human rights and social development. You would find that even where in the formal sector of care work, there are issues of heavy regulation as well as compliance. And that in itself, while it's very important to protect vulnerable populations, what we find that there needs to be a balance between over-regulating and the small mom and pop shop struggling to comply, and therefore whatever resources they have is going into compliance and very little into paying for qualified workers. So the result is churn in the hiring sector, low depressed wages, a lot of turnover, and therefore less care and less care work. So what are some of the practical things we can think about in terms of advancing solutions? So from my own lived experience, and without going into a whole lot of detail, there needs to be, in my view, at the very foremost, revision of the discharge at admission, the predefined discharge at admission date. I know it sounds a little confusing, but the insurance companies and some healthcare facilities have predetermined discharge dates. Why is that so? It's usually to hold down cost. So we need to push for policies that look to providing sound health care rather than prioritizing shareholder interest. So shift the burden from pushing discharge so families become care workers sooner than the patients are ready, to a scenario where doctors and the insurance companies and the patients can come to good conclusion about care and stop the revolving readmission. And why do I say this? As I shared with you, dear colleagues, I had a 22-year-old paralyzed from the neck down, 9 admissions, 7 healthcare facilities. At each point, she was summarily denied treatment and discharged because of this predetermined discharge at admission planning. So what happens? I became a caregiver. And you can all imagine the implications: income, loss of time, and the treadmill of caring for loved ones. Now, what else can be done? We need to also put in policies where insurance do not arbitrarily deny care, because ultimately, when families cannot adequately advocate and push back, as I did for my daughter, literally standing between the bean counter and the doctor who was an ally to my daughter, and say, we need to look at this at a different, from a different perspective. So finally, member states have to strengthen programs such as Family Leave Act that allows, provides job guarantees when you have a medical situation and you're forced to become a caregiver. Those systems exist in more developed countries, but they are completely lacking or missing in less developed countries. Those systems are what we call hodgepodge. In other words, the integration of those systems are not strong. So you need sometimes, I would say, a PhD to navigate how to get care. I literally went to school to do this so I can adequately advocate for my own loved one. But it took a lot of time away from work, the threat of being out of work, and actually I was at some point out of work in order to be present to my loved ones. Now, at the international level, as we have heard from the esteemed panel here, there need to be some form of data collection, data recording, so those pieces of information inform sound policies across the board. And where there are developmental programs at the country level, social and otherwise, they are somehow tied to either including collecting data on what the country's care work environment looks like. So let me end here by saying, in closing, that the simple truth, as you will hear across all the speakers here, is that care work should not be a private burden. It's not about heroism. Care workers are not looking for medals. It is an essential part of the social fabric. Otherwise, we cease to exist as a species. Care is public good, and care should be part of every nation, systems, communities, social fabric. I thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Evans. Thank you. It now gives me a huge pleasure to introduce Mr. Jack Ding, founder and CEO of WK. Jack, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Jack Ding. I want to introduce you to Domi Chain, a next generation blockchain designed not just for technology's sake, but for people. Domi Chain is a high-performance AI-secure Layer 1 network built to support large-scale human systems. It's fast enough for real-time coordination, secure enough for sensitive data, and flexible enough for complex social applications. And one of the most meaningful places it can make a difference is in care work. Caregiving, raising children, supporting elders, assisting people with disability, sustaining family is a quiet infrastructure that keeps humans alive. Yet globally, it remains undervalued, underpaid, and largely invisible. The Omni-Chain offers a new digital foundation to change that. So what's the challenge? Care work faces three persistent problems. First, it's undervalued. Much of it is unpaid or informal, leaving caregivers without recognition or economic security. Second, it's fragmented. Services and benefits are scattered across agencies and platforms with no unified system of trust. And third, it's inequitable. Millions, especially women, migrants, and low-income families, lack access to reliable care resources. To fix this, we need infrastructure that's fast, transparent, secure, and human-centered. And this is exactly what Domi-Chain can provide. What is Domi-Chain bring to the table? The Domi-Chain architecture is built for social systems. It delivers over 100,000 transactions per second, enabling real-time coordination. It uses AI-driven security to protect vulnerable populations. It supports WASM, smart contract, or flexible care applications. And it anchors data on Bitcoin for trust and transparency. This combination makes Domi-Chain uniquely suited to support care-driven ecosystems. So how does Domi-Chain support care work? We can support verifiable care record. So caregivers can maintain secure, portable, and tamper-proof record of their work, hours, services, training, and contributions. For many caregivers, this is the first time their labor becomes visible and verifiable. And fair and transparent compensation. Smart contract enable automated payments, caregiver stipends, community reward tokens, and transparent subsidy distribution. No intermediaries, no leakage, no exploitation. AI-enhanced care systems. Omni-chain AI layer can match caregivers with families, generate alerts for at-risk individuals, and personalize care plans, and detect fraud in benefit programs. This improves care quality while reducing administrative burden. Protection of vulnerable groups. Decentralized identity ensures migrant caregivers keep their credentials. It ensures elders and children receive verifiable services. It ensures family can trust the care network. Here, blockchain becomes a shield, not just a ledger. A human right infrastructure. So care work is increasingly recognized as a human right and a foundation of social development. Chain provides the digital backbone by enabling universal caregiver registries, transparent social protection systems, cross-border recognition of care credentials, equitable access to services. And this is technology in service of dignity, equality, and social progress. In conclusion, care work is the heart of human society, and for too long it has been invisible. And Chain gives us the tools to finally value it economically, socially, and structurally. By combining blockchain trust, AI intelligence, social-fi incentives, Chain can help build a world where caregiving is not overlooked labor, but a recognized and empowered pillar of human rights and development. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Jeff. I'll now go across. The next segment will be really regional perspectives on care systems and caregiving policies. The focus will be on the legal frameworks, public policy, and community-based care approaches from different regions. Our first speaker will be Ms. Chimbo. She will speak, say a few words. She's an educator and a philanthropist. Ms. Chimbo, the floor is yours.
非常高兴啊！大家好哈！我本来是没有讲话哈，没有准备。今天呢，非常开心哈，能坐在这4号大厅里头，非常感谢尤波吉博士哈。那我今天呢？ 我们是这个迎接这个农历新年和汉天威4号走进联合国，我预祝大会圆满成功，谢谢。
Our next speaker will be Miss, is it Pei Pi Zhao? She here? Howard International Investment Company. Is she here?
好，大家下午好啊！我是华兴国际投资有限公司的执行董事赵佩佩。今天呢，非常开心和荣幸啊，能走进咱们联合国大厦。那么我简单的花1分钟、2分钟的时间做一个这个来访的介绍。华兴国际呢，总部在香港，我们从去年呢，在美国也设了分部。那么之前的过去的投资经验过程当中呢，我们重点围绕着是4大领域，在低空经济领域啊、新能源领域，还有医疗板块 然后再加上机器人这个赛道，4个赛道展开投资。那么接下来呢，我们的核心重心呢，从这几年就会放到医疗大健康这个板块，还有 AI 这个赛道，所以也希望也能给咱们医疗行业多做一些相关的一些贡献。好，谢谢大家。
Do you mind interpreting?
Yes, I'm right here. I'm the interpreter.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm going to interpret Mr. Pepe's speech, and she represents Hualin International Investment Corporation Limited is a foreign-funded management company headquartered in Hong Kong with offices in Shanghai, Hong Kong, and other locations. Since last year, they also established a branch in the United States. The company integrates advantages in industrial investment operation and advanced industrial cooperation resources to pioneer a new economic model of industrial investment, driving social and industrial economic growth. The focus is on low altitude economics, no energy, pharmaceutical, and robotics. And she just mentioned that her main focus is going to be in robotics and pharmaceutical and health industry. With that, I think she is making a great impact to the field of health and pharmaceutical and also technology.
Thanks very much, Jeff. Our next speaker will be Lisa Chen. She deals with autism, music, education expert, and also a philanthropist and a great friend. Lisa, the floor is yours.
说不出来。各位来宾，大家好，我是陈和霞，好莱坞文化传媒集团董事长，老家在中国世界华人春晚的创始人。此刻站在这座承载着全球和平愿景的联合国殿堂，指尖仿佛萦绕着音乐的愉悦，心中满是跨越山海的感动与荣幸。是音乐让中华文化与公益大爱再次相拥。我从事自闭症教育20年，我今天最要表现的是我的自闭症孩子。20年来，在我的精心培养下，孩子们的成长不仅展示在各个行业、各个领域，他们的成长非常棒，而且他们有着非常棒的才艺。我今天等我讲完了，一定要让孩子们表演，展示给在我们联合国的舞台。20载的春秋非常不容易的度过，我以音乐教育为根，一边为自闭症青少年拨开沉默的阴霾，搭建通往世界的舞台，为这一群弱势的孩子们给他们提供非常棒的舞台，我觉得是非常非常有意义的事。我的学生自闭症孩子段博文，经过多年的培养努力，他现在考上了音乐学院，而且在世界舞台得了冠军的好成绩。 自闭症孩子 Kevin 3岁开始培养，这个孩子非常有天分，我觉得对他的培养，对他的在艺术造诣上的培养非常有成效。这个孩子由原来比较重症，现在变成非常轻的，而且非常有艺术才华的、有天才的孩子。我觉得这件事，我呼吁我们全球都能来关注这群自闭症的孩子。在这里我要强调说，我连续10年创办了这个老家在中国世界华人春晚的这个平台，更多的是为我们自闭症孩子打造的舞台，而且表达我们华人在海外能够勤奋努力传播我们的文化，交流我们的文化在世界舞台上。我觉得今天到场的有英国来的合唱团艺术家，有法国明星白露娜，是跟成龙演12生肖的女主演，将会希望在我们的平台能够表演。还有保加利亚的玛丽安娜，那个今天也到了我们的会场，对我们的文化的这个互相的交流，我觉得非常有意义。今天的活动，感谢我们的这个有勾姐给我们创造这样的平台，我觉得这一点上我还是感谢他的。更重要的是，我觉得我在这里能够发出倡议书，希望我们大家都来关注、关爱自闭症孩子的教育，这将是我们的使命。我认为我做了20年，非常有意义。我希望我们的这种文化、这种成就继续下去，希望得到大多数支持。而且我今天非常感激来自这个我们艺术家这个徐悲鸿的这个长孙徐小阳也来到现场，把这个徐悲鸿大师的画马的画都带到了现场，来支持我们这个活动，也是来赞助我们的自闭症孩子。还有这个鲁波特别来支持我们这个活动，帮助我们，给我们提供了很多的为孩子们来捐助、来赞助我们这个来做这个活动。我认为呢，非常感激，包括更多的白总在前面的各位都有奉献。对，我还要说，引荐我的是陈波，很抱歉我讲不出来。其实我是搞声乐的，我可以唱歌给你们听的，可是我今天实在很难表达。我希望我的自闭症的孩子让他们来表演，你们欢迎吗？希望吗？接下来也请我们这个慈善家也来支持我们，说2句，然后让我们自闭症孩子表演，可以吗？来。
人在这儿吗？
在，都在。自闭症孩子。
有完整的一个 program. We have the whole program.
She said that they're all here. They're ready to perform. 在什么地方？在后面。
自闭症的孩子们过来一下好吗？往前走。自闭症的这个Kevin， 还有我们那个小女孩，往前。
你说一下，这是自闭症的博士搞研究的，还有我们自闭症孩子在伦敦参加过演出的，收到，这个非常棒的，我们一定要来支持。他是弹钢琴，
I'm Dr. Xiaohong Li. I'm currently the director of a cellular neurology laboratory in New York State Institute of Basic Research. I have engaged in study autism for about 20 years. I'm also the president of Autism Care Alliances. Actually, many research and clinical applications have shown the effect of music to autism. It can help activate the responsive area in the brain and can improve the social responsiveness, as well as can help the non-verbal expression of the feelings. I particularly want to mention Miss Lisa Chen's musical work. I'm very impressed by her work. She dedicates herself to educate and teaching autistic kids piano, singing for over 20 years. And last June, and Lisa and I, we co-organized 2 concerts in London where they're all, Bowen and Kevin all play on the stage, and they have seen also a couple of songs I wrote for autism. And actually, I give the music to Lisa to teach them how to sing, and they did it very well in a very short time. This is showing how, actually autistic kids can do well. And also last October, and Lisa organized another concert in United Nations, where one of them also sang one of the songs I wrote for them. So I was so moved and touched by how well the autistic kids can do. So I think Lisa's work not only trains the skills, but lead them to a world of order, beauty, and emotion. And I think her work is really a true demonstration of how music can help kids, autistic kids. Thank you, Lisa.
唱首歌吗？
让他们唱，录好的，放下行吗？你用用麦克风。他说从5点钟可以让他们唱。可以。现在唱一个吗？现在唱一个。5点再其他的。一段。OK， 王晶。
We need a microphone, so maybe use this one.
把音乐放音乐放下，用麦克风。
说出来吗？可以用这个呢，翻过来
出来吗？
那你不用唱唱海豚音不行，你唱你唱小小少年吧。
小小少年，好，来，
用
3、
德语唱。
2、1。
小小少年很少烦恼，愿往四周阳光照。小小少年很少烦恼，但愿永远这样好。一年时间飞跑，小小少年带着高，随着年岁有着变大，他的烦恼增加了。
德语。有瑞斯。
他需要时间。好了。OK， 好了。Thank you, Kevin. Let's go.
one cannot underestimate the power of children on the autism spectrum. They have talents too. Their voices need to be heard. And it's particularly moving to see a child on the autism spectrum perform and above all captivate our students that we can acknowledge them. I'd like to thank you very much, Lisa, for all you're doing. It now gives me huge pleasure to go across to our next segment, which is care work and caregiving in the context of armed conflict, humanitarian crisis, climate change and pandemics. The thematic theme will be human rights, justice, social, supportive and culturally grounded care practices in crisis and conflict. Our first speaker here, main speaker here, is Chief Charles A. Taku, the former president of the International Criminal Courts Bar Association, lead counsel of the ICC, life member of the Governing Council of African Bar Association, and above all, the president of the Reparations Committee of the African Bar Association. My learned colleagues, I must first and foremost welcome you. The last time we were together, we were in Accra, Ghana in October for the African Bar Association annual conference. Welcome, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, my learned colleague. And I'm extremely grateful to see our hero here, our childhood son here. He's a hero because much of what I'm going to say and what we talk about concerns children, and the voices of children matters. As we sit here today, bombs are falling on villages, on towns, destroying health units, and children like this one, who are not the battlefield, they watch the television, and their consciences are destroyed. A destruction where war and communities are denominalized. They are nominalized, and people praise them and praise the people who are leading this effort. Now, for the past 27 years, when the United Nations started the creation of ad hoc tribunals, starting with the Tribunal for Yugoslavia and Rwanda, I was one of the first lawyers of the sport, and I remained there to the Special Court for Sierra Leone, to the ICC, and also involved in the situation in Darfur. I was in London 2 weeks ago to talk about this, where the Rapid Response Forces in Sudan decided to bomb hospitals and kill people in Al Yemena in 2003. And earlier of late, they bombed the hospitals and killed women and children in Al Fasher. I've also been in Sierra Leone, where the Revolutionary United Front of Sierra Leone for 10 years war. But I'm not in Uganda, where I have the Lord Resistance Army that has involved many countries, South Sudan, Central African Republic, the Congo Democratic Republic, where more than 15 million died, mostly women raped, and of course my own home, the Southern Cameroons, where more than 570 civilian settlements have been blighted, and many people sent dying. Very often, those crises you see in the television every day, the bombardments, irrespective of the sophistication of the weapons, very often the first responders are the caregivers. Even if they are not the first responders, the only other people on which survival and others depend for their livelihood to survive in this way are the caregivers. And these caregivers, in different situations, they are faceless, they are ignored, but they are the true heroes. That is the only platform. When the international community intervenes, sometimes too late, and sometimes for political reasons, and they come in, it is these caregivers. For example, in northern Uganda, it is only these caregivers, they call them the Azwakas, on which most of the people are dependent to rebuild their lives. We've seen so many children who were born in battlefields out of rape or war crimes, but the midwives who managed to bring these children alive are the people in the rural areas. The people who are in charge of the existential life of people. Most of them, the women, trying to feed these children. And sometimes you see in the television, a woman is holding the baby, and the baby is dying in her hands, and the bomb drops and she's dead. These are people who today are faceless. But the majority of the world relies on them in order to survive. They are the anchor. They are the heart of humanity. I have seen them. I've spoken to them. I've been to the battlefields in the Democratic Republic of Congo. I've been in Central African Republic, in Sierra Leone, in northern Uganda. I've been there. I've met them in the top rooms of the world. And you will understand that many of them, these women, they also need psychosocial care. Because even those of all the lawyers and investigators in the case coming from the international community, when you listen to the stories of these women, and you see these women, these caregivers, with almost nothing, that is one of the miracles that the world will have. That these women are there. And when they come and tell their story, indeed, last year in this hall, I told you the toughest person I've ever found in any problem in the world is a woman who came and said, I was raped. And she testified. The only care she had to survive were the caregivers, the other women, through local sources. And they now said, cross-examine her, and she looks at you in the eye. She may even forgive the people who committed the crimes, but you ought to know better. Because that is the humanity that has been taken from them. And therefore, these caregivers, the international community does not recognize them. Yet, they are the ones who bear, who carry the weight of the existential lives of the people in battlefields. Now, let's talk about the pandemic. Not about the malaria crisis, all the crises you have in Africa and other. It is this individual. And I want to prove to you soon that they ought to be honored, because even the greatest doctors in the world, they themselves, they know. This one. Now, the American, 1 minute, please. Look at the correct reference. Yes, DSM-5, American Psychiatric Association, DSM-5. The doctors here and those of witnesses will know DSM-5. That is the standard that is used now worldwide. But they recognize one thing which we modern science do not yet have. That is what we call the cultural factors. The cultural factors which the DSM-5 says, for example, you have dissociative disorders that is interpreted in Western medicine. But in some of the traditional environment in Africa, or that the spiritual attacks that need some spiritual factors. For in the case of in Uganda, they say the Chen, and two distinguished professors. One came from the prosecutor, Dr. Ovoka and Dr. Katina Abo. They studied and said he has beaten Western medicine. Many people that are in the street, they are insane. They say these are multiple dissociative disorders, PTSD, and others. They interpret. But when they go through the rituals, these are drugs They go through these rituals, traditional rituals. The doctor found that they got well. And that's a majority of people who go through this traditional ritual. And therefore, there was a need to bridge the gap so that the modern experts and the doctors that say they have to work with people to understand the traditional factor. You have to deliver what we call culturally sensitive care in order for it to be effective in the different communities. And therefore, you have to work with these traditional caregivers and others because their dignity, the human dignity, depends on the cultural factors, the cultural institutions that they live on. And I can say without violating the rights of our own rights to privacy, there are many of us who grow up in such environment and will survive thanks to these cultural factors. I do not want to say our colleague here rescued as a child because of one of the most devastating crises in Africa. I went back to that time when I met her in Zambia. She told me the story. In the Nigerian war, I shall reason to sit here today to educate the rest of the world about what she knows, what she lived through. Many of us sitting here went through the wifery in our respective homes, through the cultural factors, and we still do it. And therefore, there was a need for United Nations organizations or other states to provide enough resources for research. They cannot only remain in the shadows, hiding them to say faceless individuals because they rare. Let me cite some examples. I brought two advocates to testify at the International Criminal Court about how millions of children that were devastated and their mothers raped in northern Uganda by the Sokoni, the non-resistance army, many of them indoctrinated, and how they managed to rebuild their lives and they brought about peace. It is this advocate, they have to go through those cultural factors. Even though the people, and somebody who argued that these cultural factors do not really exist, but I just started this SM. It's not only about the social disorder that you find, you also find delusional disorder, page 93. Schizophrenia disorder, page 99. Culture-related diagnosis, bipolar disorder, trauma and stressors, post-traumatic disorder, page 279. The whole of DSM that is used by practitioners worldwide, they stress about the cultural factors. But are they applied in reality? Do the policymakers provide enough resources for research? To say, Dr. Ogoji, go to the field, get people. And I saw one of the distinguished researchers who talked to us, give them enough resources in order to bring this to the mainstream. It's like international law. You cannot say that because of international rules of practice, and you are doing cases of Africa and different places without looking at the perception of the people, the beneficiaries. What is their perception? What do they think? How do they think will be part of their life? And therefore, I came here today to say, I'm talking about these people I've met in the past 23 years, 27 years, about the women, about the children, and to say the cultural factors must be considered, and that they are the first responders before, during, and after the war. A few years ago, here in New Jersey, there was a hurricane that devastated this coast of America. The first responders were who? The caregivers, the nurses, and others. But they are never really recognized as such. And as an international lawyer in the courtroom, we see these victims who come to testify, those women and children and people, many of the care workers that were killed in combat. I see them every day. They bring psychosocial care to them. Because even those of us, my investigator and others, by merely hearing the evidence and see these women testifying, many of us go through psychosocial care. because you cannot dream all the nightmares and everything. And therefore I came here today to talk on behalf of these cultural groups and this psychosocial care that modern technology must not make us forget the very foundation of humanity and human medicine. Sometimes they say, oh, this Chinese medicine, oh, this. But these are cultural practices that must be brought to the mainstream. Thanks so much.
And thanks very much, Chief Taco. And I'd like to also thank you for all the good work you do at African Bar Association, taking a leading role, especially your work with the Reparations Committee. And also I'd like to acknowledge your work as a former president of the International Criminal Court Bar Association, and also lead counsel of the ICC. Thank you so much. It's really great to have you. I'd like to just a few minutes, the ladies there would like to say a few words. Ms. Jimbo Dale would like to say a few words.
尊敬的各位先生、女士、同胞们，大家好，我是来自中国朱砂研究院的鲁波，跨越山海，相聚于此，共迎新生，能在联合国这一见证人类文明的殿堂，与大家分享源自中华大地的瑰宝朱砂，我深感荣幸。这颗穿越千年的红色精灵，它是活着的中华文明史，是刻在华人血脉中的精神信仰，更是中华文化传承与创新的生动见证。古往今来，这份红从未褪色，它曾是帝王案头的朱批，一笔定乾坤，见证王朝的兴替。它曾是艺术殿堂的亮色，从敦煌壁画到李可染先生的万山红遍，用千年不退的色彩定格永恒的审美。今天，它依然闪烁在我们生活之中，春联上的一点鲜红，护身符上的温润光泽，寄托着我们对于平安兴旺的祈愿。此刻，在世界的目光交汇处，这抹无需翻译的中国红，是连接故土与远方的精神图腾。它不仅是中医药宝典的明珠，守护一代代华人的健康，更是融汇儒释道智慧，承载深邃哲思。道家借它追寻天人合一，佛家视它为智慧庇佑的象征，儒家则是朱砂开智之理，一方朱砂千年智慧，这正是中华文明博大包容的缩影。无论我们走向世界的何方，始终是我们扎根文化的底气。中国朱砂研究院在贵州的万山，被誉为千年的甘都，这里曾为祖国建设奉献全部。现在我们选择以文化为情，开启新生。在这片土地上，深藏的970公里的地下长城，变身独一无二的朱砂古镇。从梵净山的长生不老丹到朱砂古镇的文化启航，让千年的采矿石可触可感，数千种精美的工艺品应运而生。珐琅彩与大漆非遗工艺的碰撞，让朱砂红走出国门，远销欧美东南亚，让千年的矿山的烟火气与世界的喝彩声相融。朋友们，文化是流动的江河，是沟通心灵的桥梁。朱砂从历史深处走来，走入我们的生活， 又从这里走向世界。这份红色的精灵属于历史，更属于未来。值此马年新春，这抹源自大地的中国红，是华人对故土的眷恋，是对未来的期许，更是我们无论身在何方，都永远割舍不下的文化之魂。在此诚邀各位朋友，有机会亲临贵州万山，触摸这部大地的红色史书，感受一座城从地下到地上的温度，共同探讨文化遗产在世界舞台上绽放更耀眼的光芒，共助力自闭症的慈善事业的蓬勃发展。最后，祝本届华人春晚圆满成功，祝愿各位朋友们马年吉祥奔腾，万事胜意，阖家幸福。感谢大家。
Now it gives me great pleasure to go across to our next speaker, Mr. Mervyn Wang. And Mr. Wang, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Iguchi. Excellency, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to address this distinguished assembly on an issue central to the future of our society. The importance of the strengthening financial resilience of our society, especially in the developing countries. Across the world, the people are living longer than ever before. This is a historical achievement. Yet, the longer lives also bring rising exposure to chronic illness, long-term care needs, and steadily increasing healthcare costs. Health risks are no longer short-term shocks. They are long-duration financial risks affecting household, public budget, and national economies. The public health system remains the cornerstone of equitable access to care. But growing fiscal pressure means that complementary financing solutions are increasingly important. Properly designed insurance systems help pool health risks and reduce catastrophic out-of-pocket expenses. Like Emma mentioned before, the patient need. We need a system to help everybody. So protecting families. At the same time, we have retirement income system help manage longevity risks, ensuring that longer lives are matched by sustained financial security. In addition, long-term savings and investment vehicles can mobilize patient capital to healthcare infrastructure, preventive care, and long-term care services, strengthening both health outcomes and economic resilience. Let me emphasize clearly, financial mechanisms are not substitutes for public health systems. But when inclusively designed and responsibly regulated, they serve as stability multipliers, reinforce the sustainability and reach of national health systems. Excellencies, financial resilience and health resilience are ultimately two sides of the one coin. Investing in sustainable health financing is both a social responsibility and an economic necessity. So, strengthening financial resilience enable healthier populations to drive productivity, stability, and long-term growth. Thank you so much, and happy Chinese New Year to everybody.
Thank you very much. It now gives me great pleasure pleasure to hand across to two young speakers. They're both students of grade 10 and 11. They're going to speak on the topic of sports, culture, music, and AI, building a harmonious and inclusive society through culture, care, and AI innovation. The floor is yours, both of you.
Also, good to see you guys here in the event. So, Honorable Event Chair, Dr. Yugoji, distinguished UN official representatives from member states, ladies and gentlemen, and friends from around the world, greetings. I'm a 10th grade student from Home Science Academy, and I currently serve as the secretary of the Youth Leadership Development Organization Sports Committee.
My name is Ichuan Zhou. I am a 9th grade student from Glenelg High School and secretary of the Youth Leadership Development Organization Dance and Music Committee. It is our great honor to speak at the 64th session of the United Nations Commission for Social Development.
This month also makes the observance of the UN World Interfaith Harmony Week, making this dialogue especially meaningful.
The theme of this year's session is rethinking and strengthening social development in the contemporary world. The role of care work and caregivers, a topic that touches every society, every family, and every generation. How can we integrate systems, technology, and humanistic care to protect those who are most in need?
I am a 10th grade prep school student in the United States, athletic basketball player, and a community basketball coach in Melbourne, Australia. Through sport, I've come to realize something profound. Care doesn't just happen in hospital or home. It also happens on playgrounds, in gyms, in classrooms, and in every public space where young people grow. In reality, sport and public activity space are often the most overlooked component in our older care and safety systems. In my volunteer work, I've interacted with injured children, students on the psychological streets, and young with disabilities and others the year to participate in sports, music, and dance. But they also urgently need to be understood, protected, and respected. Many of them hope to benefit from the support of AI technologies. This leads me to ask, can artificial intelligence become a support partner from caregivers? Not to replace them, but it helps them identify risks early and provide accurate support and ensure that safety and care right before emergencies do.
I'm currently in 9th grade and I've studied ethnic and classical dance since early childhood. At age 5, I began learning Asian folk dance at the Jing Chen Dance Studio in California. By age 11, I transitioned to the Silver Star Dance Center in Maryland, where I studied classical Asian dance more systematically. In 2024 and 2025, The original dance pieces I co-created and performed with my partners won back-to-back regional championships and double platinum awards at the Showstopper International Dance Competition. But for me, dance and music mean far more than trophies. Dance and music are universal languages of care. They offer people with disabilities and autism a space to express themselves freely, without the need for words, explanations, or comparisons. In this space, every individual can be seen, accepted, and respected. This is the most gentle, inclusive, and harmonious expression of multiculturalism. I firmly believe that dance and music are among the world's most harmonious sounds.
We believe that technology and culture are the two foundation pillars of modern caregiving systems. Artificial intelligence can help enhance campus safety, improve risk detection in public space, and offer customer support of people with disabilities and diverse conditions.
Culture and the arts infuse caregiving with dignity, empathy, and understanding, transforming care recipients into respected, heard, and empowered members of society. Sports, dance, music, and AI, though seemingly unrelated, all serve a shared mission: to build a truly inclusive, safe, and dignified society.
The measure of an inclusive society does not lie in how advanced its technologies, but in how well it cares for its most vulnerable. With the young of the generation are ready for the embrace this responsibility to safeguard our communities with the rationality of AI, to foster responsibility and teamwork through sports, and to contact, understand, and help through culture and art.
We are particularly encouraged by the recent announcement made on February 4th, 2026, by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres regarding the formation of the UN Independent Scientific Advisory Board on Artificial Intelligence, along with the submission of a 40-member candidate list to the General Assembly.
This is the world's first fully independent interdisciplinary global body. They are dedicated to assessing AI's impact across industries and society. Societies with expertise, spanning machine learning, data, governance, public health, and human rights.
The Secretary General emphasized that as AI evolves rapidly, the global community must build consensus and robust safeguards to ensure innovation serves the common good and fosters cooperation across nations.
Today on the global summit focused on the care of vulnerable populations, we as representatives of the Young Leadership Development Organization wish to respectfully progress reform. Young should not be absent from the historic transformation of AI-powered caregiving systems After reviewing the list of 40 accepted nominees, we will include it, but also disappointed to find no representation. After reviewing the list, in reality, AI is becoming the domain of the young generation. Many of the leading AI scientists and innovators are under the age of 28.
On the current expert group proposed by the Secretary General Guterres, we respectfully urge the United Nations Secretary General, the President of the 80th General Assembly, and heads of the 193 UN member states to consider the following. To establish a global youth AI scientist team composed of 50 young scientists selected from across all continents and 193 UN member states. We ask the VIP envoys and attending ambassadors at this session to formally submit our proposal to the Secretary General and the President of the General Assembly, and to convey it to the respective heads of state and governments. We firmly believe
in shaping the future of AI, ethics, safety, and caregiving systems, young should not only be responsible